Welcome to Third and Fairfax, the official podcast of the Writers Guild of America West. I'm your host, Brian Gary. In this episode, host Susie Singer Carter speaks with the Last Showgirl screenwriter Kate Gersten about drawing from her own experience of Las Vegas nightlife, her transition from writing for television to film, and more. Listen and subscribe to Third and Fairfax on Spotify, Apple, or Libsyn, and watch us on the Writers Guild of America West's YouTube channel. And now here's Susie in conversation with Kate.
And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Kate Gersten. She is the writer of one of my favorite films of 2024, The Last Showgirl. And I'm not kidding you. I really love this film. It was just so enjoyable, but we'll get into that. The film, which was directed by Gia Coppola, follows Shelley, the titular showgirl of The Last Showgirl, who is performed beautifully by Pamela Anderson in her first dramatic role. So Shelley is a seasoned Vegas performer who is facing this existential crisis when Les Razzle Dazzle, the show where she's performed for 30 years, abruptly closes. And guys, this feature, it has so many great cast members. It has Jamie Lee Curtis, Dave Bautista, Brenda Song, Kernan Shipka, and Billy Lord. It's a tremendous cast. It's a tremendous film. And I'll just slightly mention Kate's prior work, which is, you will know her from The Good Place, Mozart in the Jungle, and Schmigadoon. And I cannot wait to talk to her. So please welcome Kate Gersten. Hi, Kate.
Thank you. Hi, Susie. Thank you so much for having me today. So
my
glad
gosh.
you liked the movie.
So much fun to have you. I watched a couple of your interviews at TIFF, and you guys just have such an amazing team on that film. I was just so excited for you. And so congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was a complete dream come true to see this project come together the way that it has.
Yes.
And with the team assembled from the actors to Gia, who I love, to every single member of the crew, all the way. The PAs were amazing. Everybody was incredible on this movie.
You could feel that from your conversation. It was palpable. But I wanted to throw you this. I wanted to say this out loud to everybody because Pam Anderson said in one of the interviews, that this was the first script that she ever read. That was a good one. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great. I'm just so glad that she became our Shelley, because I don't know who else could ever have played that role. Honestly, it's been a very long road for me with this project, and we were never able to find a Shelley when I was dealing with it when it was a play. And so to have Pamela come on board and play Shelley, and for her to embody this character the way that I've always imagined this character, and it really is more than I ever could have dreamed.
It's amazing. It's a wonderful thing when you get that dream cast and they embody, like you said, every word that you wrote, right?
Yeah.
I just want so let's go back. You mentioned play. Let's talk about the trajectory of this project, because we all know nothing happens overnight.
Right.
And so what was the motivation? How did this all start? Take us back to when you were 2 years old.
Oh yeah. Well, I think there are a couple things in play that have always been really essential to me as a person, and one of those is that I come from a long line of people in the theater, and so that camaraderie of being backstage is something that I've been witnessing since I was a baby. And I really love that. And I was an actor for a number of years before I went back to grad school for writing. And I love that backstage family that you create when you're in a show. And so that was something that I really felt like I wanted to explore in terms of the relationships between the women. And then also, I love the lives of dancers. I grew up dancing. My mother was a dancer with the Martha Graham Company when she was young. My dad loved dancing and studied dancing. He was a stage manager. but he was never an actual dancer, but he loved to dance. I mean, all I can think about is my dad dancing. And
I
so,
love this. I didn't know that. That's so
yeah,
amazing.
so I really just, and A Chorus Line was like the first show I ever saw, and when I was like 4 years old, and I was obsessed with it. So just hearing stories of dancers has always been something that I really appreciate as a film goer, as a theater goer, so that was something that I was excited to talk about also. And so basically, I went to Vegas when I was in grad school. I was studying playwriting at Juilliard, and I was mostly like for money. I was babysitting and I was working at a farmer's market, and I was doing like a bunch of other random little like money jobs, like just working my butt off like every single day to
Like you
make my
do.
like you do in New
Like
York
you do.
City when you're, a kid being like a 30-year-old. um, so, so then between my second and third years there, I got hired to write the patter between songs for this woman's one woman show in Vegas. And she was like this vocal impersonator, and she did like 60 voices in an hour and a half.
Oh
And
my
she was
God.
amazing. And she was famous in like Belgium and France and
Right.
French Canada. And she was a French Canadian gal. And she was so talented. But we were taking over the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night performances of a show called Jubilee,
Hmm.
which was the last standing showgirl spectacular topless review in Vegas at the time. This was in 2013. And so I got to go see Jubilee while I was there. And I was struck by the fact that there were 85 women on stage, there were 45 people in the crew, and there were like 15 people in the audience in a 1,000-seat house. And it was really just, I don't want to say that it was sad. It was really fascinating because this was clearly a show that was not going to survive much longer, but I
Hmm.
knew it had been on for like 30 some odd years. And so I started talking to some of the dancers in our show, and then talking to some of the dancers in Jubilee, and then talking to the company manager of Jubilee, who was a woman named Diane Palm. And she taught me all about sort of this showgirl ethos and how different it is than burlesque or than stripping, certainly. And that it's really a very different mindset than anything. Is closer to ballet, it's closer to this French sort of um, cultural, phenomenon that doesn't really exist anymore, certainly not in America. And I was just intrigued. I just saw these women on the stage, some of whom were clearly had been in the show for decades.
Right,
And
right.
I was like, what are their lives like? And I had been living in Vegas for 2 weeks, which is like 12 days too many to be in
Right.
Vegas.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, how do people live here? Like, what are people's lives like here? And I knew that backstage feeling, but I didn't know what life was like in Vegas. And I started talking to some friends I had that lived there, and it really I was just purely inspired by seeing Jubilee and seeing these women on stage. And I went back home to New York, and I was about to start my third year at Juilliard, and I went to the Williamstown Theater Festival for a week, which I used to love to do, to just write during the summer. And I sat for a week in the cafe there, and I just wrote this whole play. And I
Wow.
just, it just all like came out like so fast. And it was really, uh, it was just felt like, kind of an amazing burst of creativity that was just pouring forth. Um, and I brought it into school, and it was quickly optioned for Broadway and for the West End.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
But we could never find the right Shelley. Was the
Really?
we had a million workshops, and it was developed first by the Roundabout Theater in New York, and then they were like, well, we just don't know who the right Shelley would be. And then a company called ATG came in, which is the Ambassador Theater Group in London, and they optioned it. And we had so many workshops, and we never found the right actress.
Wow. Wow. I'm curious because I am always fascinated by the showgirl dancers and that whole culture and the era that was, when I was little, that's what you thought about when you would think of Las Vegas. You think of these, majestic, women. I mean, it just which it is a dying breed. And obviously, and I think. Do you think it was because of the Me Too and I mean the loss of pride also in being able to do that in an environment in a climate of kind of
Change.
change? Yeah.
Well, the show Jubilee closed in 2016. So it was pre Me Too when it even closed. But things were changing in Las Vegas. And one of the things I noticed was, our show was kind of slick and cool, like as cool as like a vocal impersonator. It sounds like wouldn't be cool, but it was actually a very cool show. Very unique. The singer was so talented.
Uh-huh.
She was so talented, gorgeous, like so cool. But a lot of the shows that were coming in at the time were super raunchy. It was so sexual. It was so sexually charged. And Jubilee is a show that is not very sexy as much as it is like 85 topless women on stage. It's not about titillation. It's really about the beauty of the human form.
Right.
And so that was kind of intriguing that this was something that did once upon a time sell thousands and thousands of
Right.
tickets a week. And that was just passe in 2013. So it was very much the writing was on the wall. This other shows like this had closed and this show was going to close. But I don't think the people involved in the show knew that it was going to close.
Right.
And so I think that must have been a really harsh reality for a lot of them.
Right. So you had the play
Mm-hmm.
so it never got up. It never mounted, right? Or it
Right. It was never published. It was never produced. I just,
amazing.
I have I was so sad not to see it happen. I was like, I think this is a very worthy story.
Yeah.
And this is a story about a woman. And it's also a story about American job loss, which was actually very prominent at that time when things were evolving in the car industry and things were evolving in the coal industry. And people couldn't evolve with the times
Right.
with their jobs being taken over by machines.
Right.
And I felt like this was an extension of that. And that this story was an extension of that, just told with feathers instead of like
Yes.
through the eyes of a man in like the Rust Belt.
Exactly. And it's still going on because with AI and everything, we're gonna, it continues and it's exasperating, right?
Yes, and I will say also, I mean, it's funny because I was in a Q&A last week and somebody was saying, well, what's the difference between the time that you wrote it then, the climate then politically and, more so in terms of the way that people are viewing women
Yeah.
and the way that things are now. And it really was like, oh my God, there's no difference. There's no difference. Things have not changed that much. I mean, we're just seeing this like especially politically right now, that things have not changed. People still say like, "Oh, woman, go back home. You are not needed after a certain age. We don't need you here. Go away. Don't be visible.
Right.
Don't be a leader."
Right.
And that's just the story that's been told for I mean, it's
It's
you know
it's as old as time. Yeah. It's the state. Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me started. We're going.
I
That's
know.
a whole nother
That's a
conversation.
whole nother ball
That's a whole nother
bag of
thing to unravel. Let's talk about your great movie, and also just the process. Because the process of getting a movie made, and especially you starting out as a play that wasn't mounted, right? So when did you decide to adapt this play into a screenplay? And you came from television, right? So was this your first screenplay?
So, I mean, this is my first screenplay that's been produced. I've written other screenplays that
Mhm.
nobody's ever really seen, I don't think. But I I wrote a draft of the screenplay actually back in 2014 because I knew that there was something very cinematic and visual about
Mhm.
it, and I didn't know what exactly could become of it, but I had that script and I put it in a drawer. And then because I really wanted to see the play live first. That was my dream, was to see the play come to life and then maybe make a movie of it. But when Gia asked me if she could read the play, and to take it back a little bit, my husband is Gia's cousin. And so he said to her, he knew that she was fascinated with Las Vegas. He said, you should read Kate's play about Las Vegas showgirls. And so when she asked me to read the play, I I was so happy, I was like, yeah, I'd love for you to read the play, not thinking anything of it. Then she asked me if I would adapt it into a feature. And I said, oh, I just so happens I have a script. And
Like the good writer that you are.
always prepared, right? I mean, it's
Let
hilarious.
me just bring that out for you
Yeah.
right now.
And guess what? Here it is. Pull it out of the drawer. So I gave her the script and she said, this is a much larger world than the play because this is an adaptation into a feature and it has more characters and more locations. And she said, I really love the play. I'd love for the feature to be more like the play and we can make it if it's more contained. And I said, oh, well, as a playwright, that's like music to my ears. I really was like, I would be happy to make the scenes a little bit longer and to live with these characters and just be in these spaces that are small for a little long. Like that is wonderful to me. So I rewrote the script accordingly. And sh- that was the beginning of everything. I mean, it just really, everything moved very quickly after that.
It was meant to be. It was meant to be. Everything felt, I know from what I've been read about it and everything, it just feels like magic.
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult to adapt from a play? I've adapted the opposite. So I did my first, I did my first one act. We did a compilation of a bunch of women from the WGA during COVID, and we got published. And I had to take a pilot that I did, and so I backed it into a one act, which was really hard. It was challenging to get it down and into such a small kind of framework, right? So how was it doing it the opposite? You kind of alluded that it was fantastic, but did you find what was challenging about it?
I really love sort of exploring a play from another perspective through a different medium. I really love what I love about playwriting is living with character for a really long time
Right.
and just being able to breathe. And writing for TV for the last 10 years, I've learned about economy. I've learned to be very economical and um, more focused on the driving, needs of the scene. And being able to take what was a play and actually turn it into a film script was challenging in that of course I had to take it from being a 125 page play to it is a 71 page film script.
Wow.
And we really wanted to make
Amazing.
sure, I know it's very small because we shot in 18 days
Yes.
and we were shooting on film, and so we had so little time and resources to actually do anything more than what was on the page. We needed great writing, great acting, great directing. That was all we
Right.
really needed. We didn't even really have lighting. Our lighting budget was nothing.
I've been there. I
Yeah.
love it so much, but doesn't it feel so good? It feels so accomplished. You feel so accomplished. And it
Yes.
really shows your artistry because if you can do that on that kind of budget, which I think if you have a, if you're surrounded by talent, you're going to do it. You're going to deliver it, which you did. It's such a testament to that.
It was a really special experience where everyone came to work completely prepared.
Love it.
Every actor knew all their lines, which I was like, this is amazing.
It's amazing. So
I
great.
couldn't I couldn't believe it. I mean, Pam was like word perfect. Everybody was, it was unbelievable. Dave Bautista, who
Ah,
is so special in this movie and
oh my
such a
God.
special human being. He was very nervous in the beginning, and from the first take of his, first of all, every word, every line was word perfect, but beyond that, he broke our hearts in every single take. It was unbelievable. I mean,
He was the heart of the, to me,
I
he brought,
know.
right? I mean, he anchored the heart. He really
He
did.
there's I think there's a lot of heart in various places, but he is really has a special emotional connection to this material personally also that I think really brought a lot out of him in his
And a
performance.
lot happened in between the lines with him, I thought, a
Mhm.
lot, which was
Yeah.
really rich.
Yeah,
And the connection and the chemistry between him and Pam was
I
really
know. It's
It was
it's
really
great.
yummy. It was
Yeah,
really,
very
really
yummy.
good. Yeah, I was going to ask you this question because I heard you say this, and I think every writer would want to say this, but you kind of already explained why. But you called yourself the luckiest writer in the world.
But yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think you are too. I think what happened is like amazing because, we all wish for that when we're wearing, especially as a hybrid, because I'm a writer director, and you
Mhm.
wish for those kinds of magical things to happen, and those are oftentimes like once in a lifetime, like
Yeah.
so which is great. But you also mentioned something else, and which is I find very intriguing, is that you were on the set,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
I got
most
to be on
writers
the
aren't
set.
allowed to be on the
I
set,
know.
and I've always been lucky to be on the set as a writer. But
Mhm.
how did that happen? Most people just wait for their invitation to go to the red carpet, and that's it.
I know this sounds crazy and a little bit too insane, but it's because Gia is my cousin-in-law,
Uh-huh.
and she knew how much this story is meant to me. And I basically said, when she said, "Would you let me direct this as a feature?" I said, "Yes, of course."
Hmm.
And I would really like to learn a lot. I've been on set for television shows. I've produced as a TV writer producer, which I've done for the last 10 years, but I haven't really spent a lot of time on film sets. And I really think it's very valuable to have a writer on a set. And I said, I really want to be on set and I want to see cuts of the movie. And nobody gets to touch the script except me. That was one of the big ones because
Love
this
it.
is a very personal story to me, as much as it's about something that's very much outside of myself in terms of it being about a showgirl. Um, it's about my relationship with my mother. It's
Yeah.
about my relationship with my father. It's about all kinds of personal things. And Gia really respected that, which
Mhm.
is amazing. And I think that she was looking for artistic autonomy as a director in terms of what it all looked like. And I was looking for artistic autonomy as far as the script. And she gave that to me, which is a huge gift. And I don't know almost any other director that would really do that, but it was amazing. And I will forever be thankful. But I also feel like writers should be on set.
I
Writers should be.
125% agree with you, 200% agree with you, because we know this, we know our story inside and out. There's such a value, and I was lucky in the first two films I did that the director, we had such a great connection that he always had me on the
Yeah.
set. And I never thought I would direct, and then I realized not every director is like this said director, and that I just have to give away my thing and then just hope that it comes out the way I imagined it, and that didn't feel good, and which is why
Yeah.
I decided to start directing. I never thought I would, and then and I also have a background as an actor, so I thought,
Mhm.
well, it kind of tracked. Do you think you'll go into directing
I
ever?
would love to.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I love working with actors as a former actor. It's I think acting and writing go hand in hand. I think acting and directing go hand in hand. I feel like character is at the center of so much. Obviously, um, that that is where acting and acting background is so useful as a writer and also as a director. And I think that it all is connected. It all
really.
is connected. And it just is about, I think, how much you want to be involved with with the creation of all of it.
Mhm.
And I definitely can't wait to direct.
You're gonna love it because you sound just like me. I didn't think I would. I remember telling the director that I worked for, I will never do it. And he goes, "You're gonna do it." And I said, "I'm never gonna do it." And then when I did it, and I realized how easy it was and how happy I was. I don't mean easy, but
No, I
easy,
know
my soul
that
easy.
it was
Yeah,
natural for you. Yeah.
natural, and that I was smiling at the monitors, behind the monitors, that I was so happy to see, to be able to be part of this and see it manifest. And I
Mhm.
think you're going to absolutely, you're going to be wonderful director. I
Thanks.
tell
I
you that.
appreciate that.
I really mean that. You have such good energy and experience. So I'm excited for you. I just got chills. So what what do you like better, television or features, now that you've done one and you see the process and
Oh, I love them both for different reasons. I really love living with characters in TV for a long time, and I really love the beginning, middle, and end nature of film, and
Mm-hmm.
just being able to see a project completed in
Mm-hmm.
that way. One of the things about TV that I've always felt like every experience that I have, I just want to learn more and more from. And
Yeah.
in TV, as I've gone through 8 seasons of being a writer on staffs on various staffs and developed my own shows, um, I just really have felt like I just want to be able to have my own words on the screen. It's so, it's like I really love the collaborative process of television,
Mm-hmm.
but for screenwriting, I also really love being able to work alone,
Yeah.
which is
I
very similar to playwriting, obviously.
agreed. I agree. What do you want people to take away from this film? There's so many different themes in it, but and there's the obvious themes of that. Well, first of all, you had such a female-driven team anyway, and here's the all. It really was a lot of estrogen going on.
Yeah. It's a real estrogen
Yeah.
fest.
So what's
Um,
the takeaway that you'd like? I know what my takeaway was, but what would you hope that everyone goes away with?
I hope that people take away the idea that we can tell our own stories about beauty, sexuality, and that there are stories about female beauty and female sexuality that can be told
Yeah.
by women writers, by women directors. A lot of the time, I don't think that those stories are being told by female filmmakers and female writers. That they are a bit that they're told by men a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a bit of a reclaiming of a movie about sexuality told by women.
Hmm.
And so I sort of hope that people walk away with that, and that you know we're very valuable as members of society for a very long time beyond when we are done having children, if we even choose to have children at all.
Right. Right. I agree with all. I mean, I got all of that too, and I also got the process of acceptance, right? And and being okay with that, where you're at in your life in the different stages, and that sometimes we can't define. We just can't, if that's
Mhm.
the culture that's happening, which is what's happening to Shelley. you know she couldn't stop the closure of that club and the climate of the appetite, rather, right,
Mhm.
for that kind of entertainment. So for her to watch her go through the process of accepting and being resilient, and knowing that it's okay, that if things change, that you're still the same human being,
Yeah.
and that you are okay, you are not less than. And I
Yeah.
think that's important, because we do all change, and we get older,
Mhm.
and some people get ill and they can't do the same things that they did. Some people, we age, we whatever it is, it's about accepting it. And that's what I got, which was, it was beautiful. It was very, it was, I mean, I think people, women especially, will it'll resonate with them, her fight to
Mhm.
not accept it which was beautifully portrayed and beautifully written, and looking in the mirror at herself, and just struggling so hard. And then when she finally, leans into it, it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And I think that's a beautiful message.
Yeah. I think also the idea that it's okay if we don't get everything right,
Yeah.
if we don't do everything perfectly. I think that when she says, in the end, when she says, you know, people always tell you to take the path you chose not to take, it's like it's okay for us to stand by the paths that we've chosen.
Right.
That's another thing that is
Yeah, for
important to me.
sure. Yeah. Really
Mhm.
good, really wonderful. What is next for
Um,
what's next for Kate Gersten?
I'm working on a screenplay about my childhood. I grew up in Lower Manhattan in the 80s and 90s, in an area that wasn't very that was still. I mean, it was just not the way that it is today. I grew up in
Uh-huh.
Tribeca, and when there was nothing there, just some loading docks. And so I'm working on a story about that, about a kid in Tribeca who doesn't want to grow up and is trying to save her parents' marriage.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And will you go back to theater? Is that something that you are still interested in?
I love the theater so much, and I hope that I have time to go back to it at some point soon. I am almost done with a play that I have as a commission for the Roundabout Theater. And
Nice.
so hopefully I will be able to go back, but it's hard, TV takes up a lot of time.
It really does.
And which I'm very thankful for. And, just I've got two little kids, so I just want to keep those insurance dollars rolling in. And independent film doesn't pay a lot.
No, it doesn't.
So TV is always going to be the bread and butter.
That's good. So
Yeah.
I like to ask this for people that are
Mhm.
listening from the WGA, like some of our our newer members, and
Mhm.
how did you forge ahead in your career? Like, do you have any successful advice for the writers that are just starting out?
I would say have a good attitude about general meetings, that you just never know where they're going to lead. I had a general with someone at Amazon that led to my first job on Mozart in the Jungle. And I think that generals can be hard for a lot of writers because it's hard for us to talk about ourselves sometimes. Some of us are good at it and some of us are not so good at it. And I think that just having a positive attitude about general meetings is one little tiny piece of advice that I would say um, is a good thing to cultivate.
To leave a good memory of yourself, so people will. And did you do follow ups, or did how was there any other kinds of mo that you had that helped
Um,
you in any way?
I think it was just I really continued to produce work. I just produced as much independent work as possible, kept shoveling it over to my agents for them to shovel out to Hollywood. And I just tried as many pitch documents as I could. I just kept on writing. Christopher Durang was one of my mentors at Juilliard, and he always said, just write, just get that first draft out. Just do it. Just get the first draft. Don't go back. Don't rewrite while you're writing. Don't read it. Just do it. Just write it. And that has always stuck with me. And I feel like it's actually been very helpful to just get that first draft out. Don't judge yourself. Just write. And that has always been a bit of a guiding light for me.
That's excellent. How do you deal with rejection in terms of your projects, or feedback? Do we all get interesting feedback sometimes, right? And we're like, what? Wait, everyone loves this. What are you talking? How could they say this? How do you deal with that?
It's definitely very hard. I saw like one tweet that was like in the sea of of positive
That's
responses
all
about
we
the
can
Last Showgirl.
focus on, right?
One stupid tweet. And it like really stuck with me overnight. And I was like, oh God. But then I realized, everybody has their own opinions and everybody, who knows who's been rejected by a girl that looks like Pamela Anderson. And that's why they're like weird about the Last Showgirl. But
Good
basically,
thinking.
I think in general, if you're writing something that means something to you, then it's worthy to you, and that's the most important thing. And don't worry about, I don't know, it's very hard. Look, saying don't worry about what other people think is like literally impossible. So that's crazy advice. But I would say that as much as you can just know in your heart that what you're doing is worthy because it means something to you, then other people will connect with it also. And the more personal you write, I think the more personal you write, the more relatable things are.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you 100%. I mean, it's our stories, and the more detailed our stories are, the more they resonate
Yeah.
and the more transparent. Is there anything that you wanted to say that I didn't bring up? Anything at all?
Um, I don't, I don't, I don't know. I don't think so.
No?
I
Okay.
don't know. I'm
Was
like
there,
trying to think of
yeah,
like
because
what's up.
I mean, I just love the film. I just think you're terrific. I think if I was doing a general interview with you, I would remember you for sure.
Aw,
And
thanks.
I watched you, in this group interview that you had, and you were just very supportive of everybody, and you have just a joy about you, and that's such a delight. So I really wish you the best, and I know that there's going to be so much talk about this film, and all of your sisters at the WGA are rooting for you. We're cheerleading for you. Go girl!
I really appreciate that.
Girl. Well, the last girl I interviewed won the WGA award, so I'm good
Oh
luck.
wow.
I'm just saying.
You are good luck.
I'm good
Really.
luck. I wish you all the luck, and thank you for talking with us. And I'll just be following you. And thank you, Kate
Thanks.
Gersten, and everybody.
Yeah.
Go see the Last Showgirl. You're not going to believe Pam Anderson's performance. It's a breakout for
Yeah.
sure. And I'm proud of the whole team, all of you guys. So thank you,
Thank
and I'll see you on. Hopefully, I'll get to see you in another thing soon. And
Yeah,
I look forward to
absolutely.
it. Okay,
I hope so. All
okay,
right.
take care.
Thanks
Bye
so much,
bye.
Susie. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Third and Fairfax. You can listen and subscribe to Third and Fairfax on Spotify, Apple, and Libsyn, and watch us on the Writers Guild of America West's YouTube channel. If you like this episode or have a comment, email us at podcast@wga.org. Also check out writtenby.com, the Guild's online publication, for more on writer craft, career, and union life. And see you next time.